So with Sales Navigator, you can find veterans that you can then target. Hey, I see that you're a veteran. Great. So am I. So, I mean, the whole point of this is that you want to create the rapport. You then want to offer value, and then you ask for business. If you ask for business immediately, you're going to get flagged. It's just not a good way of doing it. But if you target well and you create that rapport, hey, we went to the same university. That's great. How was your experience at UCSB? What was your major? Like, if you can kind of create that relationship first, then offer value. Hey, I'm offering like a Go Gaucho credit, or I'm offering a local heroes program where I give $2,000 back at close of escrow for anyone who's in law enforcement, anyone who's in healthcare, anyone who's in the military. Like, we want to help you. Like, if we want to offer you value, if you kind of come across with that mentality, that is the way this program works for you. Okay. You will do so much better if you do it in an organic, authentic way. So you find them on LinkedIn, and you can exclude false positives. You can exclude realtors, exclude mortgage professionals. You can exclude insurance agents. Or if you're recruiting, you can include realtors, include mortgage pros if you're trying to recruit. But then from there, what we do is we can put them into a specific connection campaign that is targeted towards. So this is past real estate tech companies. This was the one where it was company not headquartered in Santa Barbara, but prospect lives in Santa Barbara. This one is company headquartered in Santa Barbara, but prospect is not living in Santa Barbara. So it's the same kind of concept, but the opposite. So if they just got a job if they just got hired by Procore, but they're currently living in like Austin, Texas, we can say, hey, I see you just got a job at Procore. That's great, but you're living in Austin. Yeah. The headquarters is here. You're looking for a realtor, I can help you out. So you can kind of do it two different ways. In this training video, we are going to do a deep dive into the subtle nuances of Sales Navigator searches. It is one of the more powerful tools that we use here at MyLinkedSolution, and it is harder than it looks, but with a little bit of practice and kind of understanding a few little items, it's going to come across as not that bad. So, and I figured the best way of teaching the details of Sales Navigator searches is by going through some specific audiences that our clients use on a fairly regular basis. And as many of you already know, the way that our kind of system works is we take the URL from a Sales Navigator search, put it into our system, and that's how it populates all the data for the campaigns. And so, yeah, let's dig right into it. And also keep in mind that, our company is a software as a service. And so we do all this for our clients. And so knowing the best search filters to find them their ideal customer profile is paramount in the success of their campaigns, which is as well as our company. But to start off, I want to kind of go through some of our different audiences that we use. Most of our clients, which are realtors and lenders. Our realtors, they really like to target local heroes, which is basically anybody who works in the healthcare industry, education industry, law enforcement, veterans, etc., education, executives and owners. So you're kind of filtering based on affluence. Recruiting, if you're trying to recruit realtors onto your team, or lenders onto your team, or you're trying to hire for a position, the recruiting scripts could work. Like specific companies. So if our client's company just opened up a new headquarters in a specific location, we'll be helping you find companies, and then veterans, which is obviously the U.S. military, U.S. Army, etc. But But let's maybe start with the Local Heroes program, because there typically is such a large audience that understanding how to kind of narrow it down from there is really important. So for example, I work in Santa Barbara, California, and I like to start off with a Sales Navigator search of determining what the right geography is, because that kind of then helps me realize what should be the next filter that we use based on what the total population is. So in all of Santa Barbara, there's over 170,000 results in Santa Barbara County. There's second connections, first connections, and first, second, and third connections. But if I'm looking for people to put into my Local Heroes program, which is basically anyone who works in the healthcare, education, military, etc., I start off with geography, then I start looking into industry, and we'll find hospital and healthcare, which is the first one that comes up. We do medical practice, because those are doctors and dentists and people who have their own medical practice. And you could also kind of segment these if you wanted to create your campaign and say, I see you work in healthcare, or I see you work in education. I would just talk to the client, see which of those sectors, which of those verticals they would prefer. And then you can make it even more targeted, because then your script can say, I see you work in healthcare, and you don't have to say, I see you're a local hero, or I see you work in healthcare and law enforcement. So just for example purposes, let's just keep it to just healthcare, but you would still put them into the same Local Heroes program campaign, because you're going to be offering like a credit toward closing costs for everybody who works in healthcare, because they're a local hero. But so from here, we're doing hospital and healthcare, medical practice. You may, if you don't have a very large audience yet, you could potentially put in health, wellness, and fitness. That's not as accurate or as lucrative, just because that would include like personal trainers, like probably massage therapists, which may or may not be able to afford a house. But then, so there's 13,000 results, which you can see up here. From there, I like to then narrow it based on total years of experience, because at least this is one of our best substitute variables for age. So they see how there's 13,000 results currently. You then add more than 10 years of experience, and then that gets us down to 4,000 results. So that brings it up quite a bit. But also keep in mind that every search that you create should be 2,500 or less, because the system can only populate 2,500 at a time. And so if you put this search of 4,000 people into our system, it would only populate 2,500, and we wouldn't know which 2,500 of that it populated. So you're kind of wasting the extra 1,500. So there's 4,000. And then I also like to use the job title to exclude, the job title filter to exclude specific titles that they don't want to target. And so sometimes real estate agents, loan officers, they can be twilighting as a realtor loan officer, but their main career, their main job is a nurse or a healthcare tech or a radiologist, or they could be doing real estate part-time, in which case you want to exclude them, because obviously why would they use a realtor if they're a licensed themselves? So even though we're filtering based on health, industry, this search could still include potentially a real estate agent if they also are a realtor for another position, right? So you then, I'll show you exactly how many people. So there are 6 people who work in healthcare and have real estate in their title. So again, a reason why you want to make sure you exclude them is because you don't want to be reaching out with a real estate proposition when they are a realtor themselves. So exclude them. I also exclude the title realtor for the same reasons. There's another 7. And even though it's a very small amount, the marginal negative branding that would come to a client if they try to sell a house to another realtor is pretty bad. And so that's why we really try hard to eliminate or exclude everyone that they definitely don't want to be talking to. It's just bad for their branding. It makes them look disingenuous, and it's not good. Then I would also exclude anyone with mortgage, which is not many, that's fine, or loan. Yep, so she's a loan specialist, exclude them. And then, oh, I also like to exclude intern. So then, because they probably don't have the money to buy a home or sell a home. And then student is also a title that can get swept up. So even though we have total years of experience, more than 10 years, there are still interns and students that slip in. So it's not like an exact science that we're trying to that's why we're trying to just get it as tight as possible, just so that there aren't many false positives. Okay, so we have 4,000 people that are in the healthcare industry in Santa Barbara County that are not realtors or mortgage loan officers. From there, if you're now at this point where you're kind of arbitrarily trying to just reduce the total results to 2,500 or less, there's a couple of filters that I would recommend. One is the seniority filter. And then you also then can exclude training and unpaid. But you can use these filters to then so for example, if you added senior and entry, now we're at 2,500 people, which is, this would be a good first search for that campaign. Or I would say it's an appropriate search. It's important to do the best search possible first, because we want our audience to be the best, most targeted, and also the most potential for them. So the seniority level, I would probably do owner, director, CEO, VP, and partner as the first search. There's 1,000 people. That would be sufficient. You could potentially add a few more by adding 6 to 10 years of experience. Yeah, so I'd maybe do that, because that way you at least get the top titles of people who have 6+ years of experience. But from here, you would then take the search and put it into our system, and it would begin to populate. Note that I didn't put connection, but let me kind of explain what this is. A first-degree connection are people who you're already connected to on LinkedIn. I probably have quite a few, because I've tried connecting with almost everyone in Santa Barbara. So I have 254 people that are in my network that fit these filters. There's second-degree connections, who are people of whom you have mutual connections with on LinkedIn. So if me and you are both connected to Herb Van Winkleman, then you and I would be a second connection. So these are people who have mutual connections within LinkedIn. And then third connections are basically everyone else. It's someone who you have 0 connections in common with. And yeah, and then typically if you have a bunch, so these filters kind of vary in terms of population of each of these connections based on how large your current connection network is. So I have 24,000 connections. And so my second-degree connections are pretty high, because chances are in my network, one of these people has a mutual connection with my network. But if you have a client who just has 300 or 400 connections, they won't have very many of these second degree connections at all, because they don't have that many connections for anyone else to have mutual connections with. If they do have a lot of connections, if their clients do have a lot of connections, then I would recommend trying the second degree connections first, just because you can then put it in your connection request script. Hey, we have some mutual friends, or we have some mutual connections, and that might encourage them to look at your profile, see who the mutual connection is, and then you'd have a higher chance of them connecting with you. But if not, there's not a huge difference in the connection rate between second degree connections and third degree connections. And so I would probably err more on like finding the right audience before you do the connection filter.